Hi everyone, my name is Shaki. I am an artist, singer-songwriter, and spiritual coach. And I also run a community on school called Art and Alchemy, where there are artists, spiritual healers, basically just a community of people who see value in creativity and see it as a spiritual process. So if you want to connect with more people like that and find a community of individuals who understand you and, just want a place to be authentic and share your art and grow in the process, I would love to see you there. The link is in my description. I want to discuss how a lot of people view art and creativity as something that's reserved for a select few. And I just want to talk about how that is so far from the truth. So if you are a recovering artist, if you are somebody who wants to get into art and creativity but don't know where to start, if you are someone who has always told yourself you're not talented, you're not creative, you're not an artist, this video is for you. So I hope you stick through the end. I have some really good gems I will share with you, and I'm so happy you're here. So let's get into it. In my community, Art and Alchemy, the message behind it is that art, the creative process, and spirituality and healing are the same, are meant to complement each other, like two sides of the same coin. When stepping into a creative endeavor, it may feel uncomfortable because you are discovering parts of yourself that you have never seen or have always been covered. So that's why, the easiest thing to say is like, well, I'm not good at that, and I'm not an artist, and I'll never be an artist. I'm not creative like they are. It is a form of self-sabotage to tell yourself those things, because your subconscious mind is going to continue believing that narrative that you have set for yourself. And the longer you tell yourself that, the harder it will be to rewrite a story. But that doesn't mean that it's too late. The reason why I chose the name Art and Alchemy is because being an artist is a form of alchemy. Alchemy is really about turning something raw into something valuable, turning pain into art, confusion into expression, and your wounds into wisdom. Art and creativity, like I said before, is a tool for self-expression and an opportunity to learn more about yourself, because self-inquiry is a never-ending process. We're never going to stop growing and changing and uncovering different parts of ourselves and outgrowing old versions of ourselves and stepping into new things. And I believe that the creative process and being an artist is about that, and is embracing all parts and versions of yourself. I grew up in an immigrant household, so my parents are both immigrants from a different country. So I grew up here in the United States, and they put me in predominantly white Catholic private schools for literally a majority of my life, for about 19 years. Growing up in those schools, I really lacked a sense of identity, especially in Catholic environments where it's a very strict religion, where they tell you how to dress, who to love, when to get married, when to have babies, what's a sin, what's not a sin, how women should act, how women should speak, all of that. I was really fighting with that when I went to school, especially because I didn't look like everyone else. So that was one thing that I kind of suffered through. And then on the other end, being in an immigrant household, you're experiencing two completely different worlds. At home, I'm experiencing culture. I'm experiencing tradition. I'm really experiencing almost being in a different country because of how my parents speak languages as well, what we eat, how we speak to each other. And then at school, it was just completely different, obviously. Different everything. Because of that, experiencing two different worlds, I just really became a chameleon. I acted the way I thought I should act. I pursued things that I thought I should pursue and study. Everything I did was for others. Even if I had an artistic interest, I pushed that away, or I called it weird, or I judged others for making art and being artists, when deep down there was a want to express myself in the same way. Because of these experiences and what I was exposed to, it really shaped my personality and how I move through the world. So I am neurodivergent, I have ADHD, and that's also something that I struggled with in school. And it just made me feel very different. And it made me feel really bad about myself. I felt like I wasn't smart. And it's just something I accepted, which is really sad. You never should just accept that. It just became a part of my reality, and I was okay with it. Having a different perspective of the world, being very sensitive and introverted, it was so hard to get to where I am today. But I learned that my wounds, my story, my narrative, it's all a part of the alchemy. It's all a part of the creative process. I didn't want to sit with those stories anymore. Yes, this is something that will always be a part of me, my experiences, and it's something that affected me. However, I refuse to sit in those feelings, all the time, and make that my reality and make that the lens I view the world through. So I took my story, I took, who I am as a person, and I turned to art to express myself, to turn it into something that's just more tangible, more comprehensible, and into something that I can share with the world in hopes that I reach other people that have also experienced the same things. Because at some point in the creative process, your work is no longer meant for you. But that's another conversation we can have another day. So like I said, instead of constantly sitting with the weight of being different and letting that dictate my reality, feeling like I wasn't like everybody else, I did something with it. So like I said, I created music, and just recently I started to create art and healing events that mix spirituality with art. And I made a community. I made an online community. To me, that is what it's about. The more that you put your art out there, the more that you step into your creativity, you do start to realize, hey, there's actually more people like me than I thought. And you meet so many great people and make valuable connections, and things just get so much better. More doors keep on opening. So that's something that I experience and continue to experience the more that I take risks with my creativity. So one of the first things that you should know when stepping into your creativity is that there are steps. Everybody does this differently. There is no right or wrong way to do it. It is whatever works for you. And don't feel pressured to share your art right away. It comes later. But if you want to share your art, if you feel like you're ready, go ahead. But if you want space to sit with that vulnerability for a bit, then do it. There's no pressure. There's no timeline on your creative process. It is your creative process. So honor it in whatever way that you choose. When I first started making music, I made music for 2 years before I released anything. I let that be my mode of expression and therapy before I let the rest of the world into mine. When stepping into this process, one of the first things you also should do is get curious. There are so many forms of art and creativity. It's crazy. And you might be drawn to one thing, but realize you actually like something else better. So get curious, look at art classes around you. There's paint and sips happening all the time. Not that that's something you have to go to, but that's a start, because you can connect with other artists and then, you know, little by little be introduced to more spaces and people and forms of creativity. Get curious on the types of art that you want to do. Is it graphic design? Is it painting? Is it writing poetry? Is it music? Is it film? You know, there are so many things. Watch videos and attend events and use your curiosity to as a tool for expression in itself. You know, honoring your curiosity is healing, because you're allowing yourself to explore and you're having compassion for yourself as you try new things. So honor your curiosity. It will take you places you never even imagined you would be. As I said 1,000,000 times, creativity is a spiritual process. It is going to be uncomfortable. It still is uncomfortable for me. Not only are you expressing a feeling and turning it into something else, but you start to hear voices. You start to hear the voices and the stories that you've carried with yourself for a long time, and they are coming back to show you, hey, I'm still here. You know, they might sound like, this isn't good enough. You shouldn't put it out. You should just stop. Your music doesn't sound like this artist. You may hear 1,000,000 things, and that is normal. Don't try to think those things away. Sit with them and create anyway. One of my favorite psychologists is Carl Jung. He came up with archetypes. One of the archetypes he came up with, which I don't remember off the top of my head, I'll put it in the description if and when I do, but one of the archetypes he came up with was somebody who makes their traumas and their experiences their entire identity. Somebody who, on first impression, the first conversations they have with people, they are talking about their traumas. He mentioned that that can be dangerous because you are constantly identifying yourself as somebody who's wounded, somebody who is constantly carrying this weight. When you do that, you are not aware that you are creating this reality for yourself. It's important to face your traumas. It's important to understand what happened to you, but to continue sitting with it, to make it your entire identity, to view the world through that damaged lens is damaging to yourself and may keep you from further creative exploration. So I bring this up because I think it's very important to be aware of the beliefs that you have and work on letting them go. Maybe even work on letting them go through the art that you do. Friendly reminder, you are allowed to start over as many times as you want, okay? I am a singer-songwriter, musician. I love writing, but I recently started drawing. I recently started painting. The events that I put together, you know, creative directing, that's a form of art and creativity. And I wasn't born good at these things. I allowed myself to explore and start all over as many times as I please. And you will start to notice that the more you I guess flex that creative muscle, you start to naturally pick up other things easier. So know that you're allowed to start over as many times as you want. Just because you picked up a creative practice and you've been doing it for months or a year or so doesn't mean you have to stick with it. The only pressure you put on yourself, the only person who applies the pressure is you. So let go of that pressure and just let it be a spiritual process more than anything. Creativity is supposed to heal. It's an alchemical process. And the more you practice it, the more you start to realize, wow, I feel really good about myself, the more you will see that you are not afraid to be who you are. You are not afraid to wear whatever you want. You are not afraid to share what you want, because you know that whoever is for you will be for you, and they will show that. Whoever your art is meant for, it will reach. And everybody else is background noise. That is all I have for this video. Again, you should join my community if you are an aspiring artist, if you love art, the creativity, if you love spirituality, if you just want to connect with more people, come join us in Art and Alchemy. It's a really good time. I think you'll love it. And I have a course, free course on there for the authentic artist, and it is basically stepping into your creativity. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck through this whole thing, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.